My name is Megan J. Mendoza, and I am 27 years old. Mason's parents called me over right before Christmas and said, "We need to meet you." I went to their house nervous as hell, thinking maybe they were going to ask about gifts or dinner plans or some family thing Mason had forgotten to tell me. Instead, they said something I could barely believe when I heard it. I did not argue. I did not cry. I stayed quiet, took out my phone, and played the recording where their son said things that left them staring at the walls like they no longer recognized the man they had raised. I work as a data analyst for a mid-sized logistics company in Pennsylvania. It is not glamorous. I track shipments, clean up spreadsheets, optimize routes, and stare at numbers until my eyes burn. But I like the predictability. Or at least I used to, before Mason turned my life into a slow-moving accident I could feel coming but could not stop. Mason and I had been together almost 3 years when everything fell apart. We met at a mutual friend's barbecue in the summer of 2021. He was handsome in that effortless way. Dark hair, warm smile. The kind of man who made people feel like they had his full attention. His parents adored him. His friends called him loyal. And for a long time, I believed I was lucky. Our first date was at an Italian place downtown. We talked for hours. He told me about growing up outside Pittsburgh, about wanting to open a small fitness studio someday, about how his last relationship with a woman named Adriana had left him drained and ready for something stable. I told him about my analyst job, expecting him to zone out, but he listened like my world mattered. By the end of the night, I was hooked. We moved in together in March of 2023, a decent 2-bedroom apartment in the suburbs. We split rent 60-40 because I made more, and I did not mind. Mason decorated more than I expected. Framed prints, lamps, a ridiculous number of throw blankets. He talked about marriage sometimes, casually at first, then more seriously. He sent me ring ideas. He mentioned kids. I let myself imagine a future. Then, around October, things changed. Not loudly. That would have been easier. It was the little things. Mason laughing at texts he would not show me, turning his phone face down, taking calls on the balcony, going out for guys' nights that somehow stretched past midnight, then 2 a.m. When I asked where he had been, he would sigh like I was exhausting him. "You're being paranoid, Megan," he said once, slipping off his jacket without looking at me. "I'm a lad to have a life outside of us." Technically, he was right, but my stomach did not believe him. Then came December 10th. Mason said he was meeting his coworker Caleb for drinks and would be home by 10. 10 passed, then 11, then midnight. I texted twice, no answer. I called once, straight to voicemail. By 1 a.m, I was pacing the living room, telling myself I was not crazy, just worried. He came in at 1:47 a.m., smelling like alcohol and perfume. His hair was messy, his shirt wrinkled, and the second he saw me on the couch, his expression hardened. "What? Are you waiting up for me like some kind of cop?" "I was worried," I said. "You said 10. Plans changed. Caleb wanted to hit another bar. My phone died. Can you stop being so controlling? Controlling. The word landed exactly where he wanted it to. The next morning, he barely spoke to me. When I asked if we were okay, he snapped, "I'm fine. You're the one making everything weird." On December 14th, I did something I am not proud of. Mason left his phone on the counter while he showered. His passcode was still his birthday. My hands shook as I opened his messages, already hating myself for needing proof. Then I saw the thread. Adriana. No last name saved, just her first name, like he thought making it simple made it harmless. The messages went back weeks, flirty, sexual. Familiar in a way that made my chest tighten. Then I found the one from the night he came home late. Tonight was amazing. I can't stop thinking about you. Same. When can I see you again? Soon. I'll figure something out. She doesn't suspect anything. I took screenshots with my hands shaking so badly I almost dropped the phone. Then, I put it back exactly where I found it and sat on the couch, staring at nothing. When Mason came out of the bathroom, he smiled. "You okay, babe? You look pale." I nodded because if I opened my mouth, everything in me would spill out. I did not confront him. Not yet. Screenshots could be dismissed. He could say I misunderstood, say I invaded his privacy, say I was unstable. I needed something he could not twist. So I bought a small voice-activated recorder and hid it under the passenger seat of his car. For 3 days, I heard nothing but radio, traffic, and calls with his mother. Then, on December 18th, after work, he got into the car and answered a call on Bluetooth. "Hey," he said, soft and warm, in a way he had not spoken to me in months. "Hey, handsome," Adriana replied. "Are you coming over tonight?" "I can't," Mason said. "Megan's been weird lately. I think she's suspicious." "Then leave her." There was a pause. "I can't do that yet," he said. "Not until after the holidays. My parents would freak out if I broke up with her right before Christmas. Plus, she pays most of the rent. I need to figure out where I'm going first." I sat in my parked car, listening through earbuds, my hands going numb. Adriana laughed softly. "So you're just going to keep using her?" "It's not like that," he said. "I care about Megan. She's stable, reliable. But there's no excitement anymore. With you, I feel alive." That was the moment the last piece of me that wanted to believe him finally went quiet. The next day, Mason's mother, Helen, texted me, inviting me to Christmas dinner. I did not answer right away. 2 days later, another message came. "Megan, we really need to talk to you. Can you come by tomorrow evening? It's important. Please don't mention this to Mason." I read that last line 3 times. The next night, I pulled into their driveway at exactly 6, the recording saved on my phone. My heart hammering so hard, it felt like it had become a warning. Helen opened the door before I even knocked. She looked smaller than usual, her face pale, her smile missing completely. Every other time I had been to that house, she greeted me with warmth, perfume, and some comment about how I was too thin and needed to eat more. That night, she only said, "Come in, sweetheart," and stepped aside like she was letting me into something painful. The house smelled like pine garland and cinnamon candles. Christmas lights glowed softly around the staircase. There were wrapped gifts under the tree, stockings hanging over the fireplace. Little signs of a happy family trying to perform joy. But the living room was silent. Thomas, Mason's father, sat on the couch with his elbows on his knees and his hands clasped together so tightly his knuckles looked white. He did not stand to shake my hand. He did not smile. "Sit down, Megan," Helen said gently. I sat in the armchair across from them, my phone heavy in my coat pocket, the recording sitting there like a truth bomb I was terrified to use. Thomas looked at Helen first, then back at me. "We need to talk to you about Mason." My throat tightened, but I nodded. Helen's eyes filled before she even finished the first sentence. "We know he's been seeing someone else." For a moment, I did not breathe. I had expected many things: denial, suspicion, maybe even an accusation that I was doing something wrong. I had not expected them to already know. Helen pressed a tissue to her mouth. "He left his laptop open here a few days ago. I wasn't trying to snoop, I swear I wasn't. But messages were right there. Her name was Adriana. And the things they were saying. Her voice broke.
Thomas's jaw flexed. We confronted him. He denied everything. Said we were old, confused, that we misunderstood. But we know what we saw. I sat very still, relief and grief twisting together inside me. Somehow, hearing his parents confirm it made the betrayal more real. Mason could lie to me. He could call me paranoid. But now his own parents had seen the crack in the mask. We asked you here because you deserve to know, Thomas said. You've been good to him. Better than he deserved, apparently. Helen wiped at her cheeks. I'm so sorry, Megan. I looked down at my hands. They were steady now. Strangely steady. I need to show you something. I pulled out my phone, opened the recording app, and pressed play. Mason's voice filled the room. At first, Helen closed her eyes. Then, Adriana's voice came through the speaker, low and teasing. Then Mason said my name. He said I was suspicious. He said he could not leave until after the holidays because his parents would freak out. He said I paid most of the rent. He said he needed a plan. And then came the part that seemed to tear the room in half. She's stable, reliable, but there's no excitement anymore. With you, I feel alive. Helen let out a sound like someone had struck her. Thomas stood up and walked toward the fireplace, then stopped, gripping the mantel with both hands. His face had gone red, but his eyes looked devastated more than angry. When the recording ended, nobody spoke. Finally, Helen whispered, "That's my son." Thomas turned around slowly. That is my son, talking about a woman who has loved him like she is a convenience. I swallowed hard. I wanted you to hear it from him, not from me, not from whatever story he tells later. Thomas nodded once, sharp and controlled. What are you going to do? I'm ending it, I said. He doesn't know that I know this much yet. I wanted to talk to you first because I had a feeling he might try to make you believe I abandoned him out of nowhere. Helen shook her head. No, he won't get to do that. We talked for another 20 minutes. They asked questions. I answered what I could. Helen apologized again and again, even though she had not done this to me. Thomas looked like he aged 10 years in that short conversation. Before I left, Helen hugged me tightly in the doorway. You are going to find someone so much better, she whispered. Someone who knows what safe love is worth. I drove home in silence, not healed, not even close, but lighter in one specific way. I was no longer the only person carrying the truth. Christmas came and went. I did not go to Mason's family dinner. He left that morning pretending everything was normal, kissing my forehead and saying, "Try not to miss me too much." I waited until his car pulled out of the lot. Then I started packing his things. By the time he came home on December 26th, every piece of him I could gather was boxed by the door. Clothes, shoes, books, chargers, protein powders, the framed photo from our first beach trip. I left that one face down on top. He walked in, saw the boxes, and froze. What the hell is this? You're moving out, I said. He gave a short laugh, like he thought I was performing anger for attention. Excuse me? Your parents know everything. I know everything. Adriana included. And I'm done. His face drained of color. Megan, he said quickly, stepping toward me. I can explain. Do not. You don't understand what was happening between us. I understand enough. His eyes flicked to the boxes, then back to me. So what? You're just throwing away 3 years? No, I said. You did that. I'm just cleaning up after it. Then came the tears. Then the apologies. Then the excuses. He said he felt lost.
He said Adriana had reached out at a vulnerable time. He said I had become distant, even though I had spent months trying to understand why he was slipping away from me. He said he still loved me. He said it was not as serious as it sounded. He said I was the person he wanted to marry. I let him talk until he started repeating himself. "You have until the end of the month," I said. "After that, I'm changing the locks." His face hardened, and for 1 second I saw the version of him from the recording. Not sad, not sorry. Cornered. "You're really going to do this right after Christmas?" he asked. "You waited until after Christmas because it was convenient for you," I said. "I'm doing it now because it is necessary for me." He moved out by December 30th. Not gracefully, not quietly, but he left. A week later, Thomas texted me. He said he and Helen had sat Mason down for a long conversation, and Mason finally admitted everything. Adriana was not some random woman. She was his ex-girlfriend, the one he had told me drained him and made him crave stability. They had reconnected through friends nearly 3 months earlier. He had planned to break up with me after the holidays, once he had saved enough money and found somewhere else to live. Thomas apologized again. He said they were ashamed, that they had raised Mason better than that. I told him none of this was his fault, but I understood why he needed to say it. I never spoke to Mason again. I heard through mutual friends that he and Adriana broke up in February. Apparently, once the secrecy was gone and rent was no longer being subsidized by the woman he called boring, the excitement did not survive real life. I wish I could say that made me happy. Mostly, it just made me tired. I moved to a smaller apartment a few months later, partly to save money and partly because the old place had too many ghosts. I dated a little, nothing serious. I spent more nights alone than I expected, learning the strange comfort of not being lied to in my own living room. Helen and Thomas still check in sometimes. We get coffee every few months. Helen hugs me every time like she is apologizing with both arms. Thomas always shakes my hand and says, "You're a good woman, Megan." At first, I did not believe him. Then slowly, I started to. For anyone going through something similar, trust your gut. If something feels off, it probably is. Do not let someone convince you that noticing the signs makes you paranoid. Sometimes your instincts are not insecurity. Sometimes they are the last honest voice in a room full of lies.